as mentioned before, today's session is a double package. So now that you've had the really fruitful conversations, really inspiring, but also informative conversations in the working groups, we have an opportunity to delve a bit deeper and unpack some of the key terminology and phrases used in the UNFCCC process. And at this time, I would like to invite Eva Costas from the UNFCCC Capacity Building Subdivision to briefly introduce the decoding segment of today's session. Thank you, Eva.
Thanks so much, Mara. Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all. Now, can I just get a bit of a show of hands in the room? How many of you have looked at a negotiation text and you're like, what's going on? Or how many of you feel overwhelmed by the acronyms, the jargon that's being flown around at the COP? Okay, see a couple of hands. Then this is the perfect session for you. And we're very pleased to be co-hosting this with the Cambridge Zero team and the Climate Talk team. But essentially, the way this session came about is because you just learn the different ways in which you can engage at the COP and in the process. But the first step to engage meaningfully is to understand the language. If we don't understand the language, we can't be part of the conversation. If we are not part of the conversation, we can't ignite change. So this is the first steps and the foundation of this session. But to get started in your decoding journey, I just wanted to flag a campaign that we're working on with the wonderful team at Climate Words. It's called The Language of Climate Action. You'll see there's some stickers around the tables that you can grab and scan the QR code as well. But essentially this campaign is all about, it's actually a life dictionary. We have 12 words at the moment. And it's, we set it up in this sort of mini docu-series type videos. And it's all about really bringing to life the stories of young people. So it's really all about young people taking ownership of these climate words and breaking down technical and climate jargon and just really sharing the real stories, the real feelings, and the real power that comes within these words and demystifying them a little bit. So feel free to scan that QR code. Under the Youth4Capacity program, you also have an exciting lineup of sessions that will be happening through the COP. This wonderful group already got to learn a bit about them, but feel free to take a photo. There's more coming. They will all be happening in special event room 5, which is Tapajos, which is just right next door. We'll have some pitching competitions, so if any of you are any project holders and do any sort of capacity building related work, feel free and come and talk to me if you want to take part. We'll be doing some stuff as well in features literacy, integrating culture and climate solutions, nature-based solutions, and so forth. So make sure you stay tuned for some of these sessions. And again, the capacity building journey doesn't stop here. It continues post the COP, and the action continues after the COP as well. So feel free to, there's been so many QR codes, so please bear with us. But make sure you follow this, join us on this capacity building journey by taking part in other Youth4Capacity activities through the year. We have mentorship programs and boot camps. We have e-learning resources on various different topics. So please join the Youth4Capacity community. And I think with that, let's start decoding. So I'll pass it over to wonderful colleague Amy from the Cambridge Zero team to start us off. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eva. It's a total joy to be back here doing this again. So briefly, who are we? I'm Amy Monroe-Fall. I'm Head of Education and Student Engagement at Cambridge Zero. That's the University of Cambridge's Climate Change Initiative. And I'm going to be presenting today with the absolutely wonderful Annabelle Liao, who leads on community engagement and events at Climate Talk, brilliant youth-led NGO that aims to demystify climate policy internationally. Annabelle's a Taiwanese Canadian. She's passionate about advocacy for large ocean territories, and she works with urban indigenous communities to increase their access to clean mobility. And it's wonderful. So, another QR code, I'm afraid, but this is going to be the last one until the end. If you could scan this. Now, if we had more time, I would love to go around and ask each and every one of you your names, but whilst we don't have that time, what I'd like you to do instead is to add your name, where you're from, how many COPs you've been to, and any UNFCCC words whose meaning you don't know or you're not sure of. And then we're going to have a look at what those responses are on the Slido, just to give you all an idea of who else is in the room. I think most people have scanned. If anyone's still desperately scanning. Okay, I think most people have got it. So, here are some of the names of people in the room. This is all of you. What countries are you from? Poland, Spain, Canada, the Maldives, China, Pakistan, Kenya, Mexico, Somalia, Oman, Uruguay, the Maldives, Switzerland, France, St. Lucia, Slovenia. Really wonderful group of people in this room. Okay, I'm going to go to the next question now. How many UNFCCC COPs have you attended? I'm glad you're all at this session. Great. And then finally, what is a UNFCCC word that you don't understand? Is there a word where you've heard it and thought, ooh, I actually don't really know what that means? I don't know what that means. Do you know that one? Yep. Great. I think we might try and capture all of these after the session and try and provide some definitions if we can. All right, so a few words: SB, slashes, JTWPs come up a lot. Adaptation, letters, party overflow, modalities, plenary, abbreviations, money, NCQG, SBTA, and then also every word, everything, and lots. Okay, so we'll move on to the next poll swiftly. So the next poll is basically, we've picked a couple of words that you might think you can understand. And what I want to show is that probably nobody knows all of these words, and everybody knows something. So the next word is, do you know the meaning of indigenous knowledge? And the options are, I know the definition, I might know the definition, and I don't know the definition. Okay, great. So we can see about half the people in the room, pretty sure they know what this means. About another half think they might know it, and a few people don't know it. So I'm just going to flip back to our other slides. So we've got a definition up here, which comes from the Climate Words project. You've got the flyers on your tables, so you can see more about climate words. And they go and ask people from across the climate sector to define words. And the point of this is that there's a definition in the dictionary, but words have different meanings for everybody. And when we're thinking about negotiations, you're often thinking about that subtlety. It's the difference in the words. So this particular word was defined by this indigenous leader as being from a Yurok and Maori perspective. Indigenous knowledge encompasses the ways we relate ourselves to the world and focuses on maintaining the physical and spiritual harmony between all things. In the context of the climate crisis, Indigenous people are stewards of the land. Now have a think, was that the same as the definition you had in your head? It might be identical, it might be subtly different. That's okay. All right, I'm going to do another one. So the next word, do you know the meaning of global weirding? Okay, great. So we've got quite a lot of people thinking they don't know the definition, a few people thinking they might know, and a few people saying they know. What does this word mean? So again, through Climate Words, this word was put to Catherine Hayhoe, who's a climate scientist, and her definition of this was, global weirding speaks to the complex ways climate change is affecting weather globally. It refers to the fact that many extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and or more severe than they were in the past. Okay. The point of this is to show you that a lot of people don't know a lot of the words. It's really okay to ask for clarification, and that different words are going to mean different things to different people. I'm now going to hand over to Annabelle, who's going to talk a bit more about what some words mean within the text and within negotiations.
Okay, amazing. I'm going to walk you through. How do I change? Is it this? Oh. It wasn't changing.
Yeah, it should.
Oh, I got it. Okay. Okay, I'm going to walk you through a few key components of UN resolutions, the technicality behind the verbs used, and how to actually read and understand these documents. So these documents can seem really intimidating at first, but once you know the structure, and the structure is the same for all UN climate documents, they become a lot easier to decode. So every UN resolution has three main parts, and understanding these, again, is your first step to reading these negotiations a bit more critically. The heading we start off with, this simply tells you which UN body is issuing the resolution. Is it the COP? Is it the CMA? And this matters because different bodies have different authorities. Next, we have the preambular clauses. And the preambular clauses really set the stage. So they indicate how countries are framing the problem and which issues they want to acknowledge. And here's the key thing to understand is that preambular clauses, they don't create binding obligations. They're often used strategically, and so countries might agree to include certain language here to acknowledge a concern without actually committing to any action related to it. These clauses will start with words like acknowledging, affirming, bearing in mind, considering, desiring, guided by, having adopted, noting, recalling, and recognizing. They're always in italics and usually end in ing, so that's how you tell these words. Operative clauses are where the action actually happens. So these clauses tell you what should actually be done, whether they're recommendations or required actions, and they're numbered, so they go 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., and they progress logically. And so when there's a conflict between the preamble and the operative text always wins. And so these start with words like calls upon, determines, expresses, highlights, invites, notes, reaffirms, recalls, recognizes, requests, urges. These are also always in italics, and these words usually end in S. And so as you read these UN documents, always ask yourself, is this key commitment in the preamble just acknowledging something, or is it in the operative section actually requiring action? So if it's helpful, I see some folks taking pictures. Feel free to take a picture of this. I'll leave it up for 1 second. And here we have what this looks like in practice. So at the top, we have the heading, then you have the preambular clauses setting context. Notice the ing words. And at the bottom, you see the numbered operative clauses ending with S words, I guess. And this structure is standard across all UN climate documents. So once you recognize the structure, you can really navigate any text a lot more easily. One Very important distinction to recognize here is the difference between should and shall. These words can seem really similar, but there's actually a very significant difference. These two words can be the difference between a strong agreement and a weak agreement, or the difference between parties taking action and not taking action. So when you see shall in a text, this means that it's obligatory and legally binding, and countries must do whatever follows that text. And when you see should, that means it's encouraged but not required, and not legally binding. So you can also think of this as a soft obligation. Nice if countries do it, but there's also no consequences if they don't take action. And so keep this in mind as we look at real examples, because you'll see negotiations. There's some very famous negotiations where countries are fighting hard over whether a clause says shall or should, because that one word really can change a lot. So here's a table, also may be helpful for you to take a picture of this. It breaks down some key words. We just walked through shall and should. There's also urges, invites, and encourages. These are also suggestions that are not legally binding, and so there's no legal obligation. If you see these words, again, no requirement to act. When a resolution establishes something, on the other hand, it's creating a new body or a process. And so this is binding for the parties and often signals an important outcome. Voluntary and as appropriate, these are another pair of phrases that significantly weaken an argument. When something is voluntary or should be done as appropriate, it often means that no real action will be taken because countries can opt out based on their own judgment. And so as we go through examples later on of actual bodies of text from past COPs, I want you to spot these words and really think about what they mean in terms of who has to do what. So this is a real example from a COP decision. This is from the new collective quantified goal on climate finance last year from COP29. Looking at paragraph 9, what do you notice here? There's encourages and voluntary, both as weak terms, and this means that developing countries can contribute if they want to, but there's zero obligation to. Paragraph 15 encourages and as appropriate appears once again, as well as underscores, which acknowledges the importance but doesn't require action. As appropriate we see again in paragraph 23 down here. And so this slide really just shows you what weak language looks like in practice from a very recent example. And once you know a couple of the key words on the table previously shown, they really will start jumping out as you the more you read these texts. Before we go further as well, just wanted to quickly explain brackets. When you see language in brackets, that means that the text is still being disputed. So countries haven't agreed to whatever is in the brackets yet. And when consensus is reached, that's when the brackets are removed. So here's an example. Developed parties, in brackets, shall/should provide financial support to developing countries for climate adaptation. And so those brackets around the words shall/should tell you that some countries want shall, making it binding, while others want should, keeping it as encouragement only, and a consensus hasn't been reached yet. So that covers some of the key components of UN resolutions. I'll now pass it back to discuss some commonly used terms.
Brilliant, thank you. We will also share a QR code to a document that has pretty much all of that information at the end. So if you haven't taken a photograph, you will be able to get all of the information about verbs. Now, we're going to go over to you for 5 minutes. So my colleague has placed on your table a word that's commonly used in the climate space. And I would like you to spend the next 5 minutes discussing this word on your table, coming up with a definition together, and then adding it to the Slido. So different tables have different words, but I'd like you to consider the word that is on your table, come up with a definition, and then add it to the Slido following this link. And we'll come back at 12:20.
Just in time.
Not all the time we ran out of words. That's why I've spoken.
Would you guys like to discuss resilience? Resilience, and come up with a definition for it? And the definition does not have to be in English. It can be...
I should add, if it's easier for your table, your definition does not have to be in English. So you've got about a minute left, so start thinking about adding your definition to the Slido. Minute left.
I joined the virtual COP hosted by you 1 month ago. I did a panel on the last day for our organization.
Oh, brilliant. That's great. Well done.
Yes, ever since we've been talking with people from the global south to manage information. So it's a very good experience.
That's wonderful. I need to bring everyone back together, so just a moment.
All right, just finishing off those definitions. Okay, I'm so sorry to cut across all the rich discussions. I would love to give you more time, and I'd encourage you to continue the discussions later if you're enjoying them. But next, we're going to move into what some of those definitions are. So do we have any definitions for resilience? Okay, so we've got a definition for resilience, which is adaptation for climate disasters. Move on to how would you define loss and damage? The groups that we're talking about loss and damage. Did this resilience group want to put your definition in?
Oh. No, it's fine.
Okay, we're running really short of time, so what I'm going to suggest you do is write down those definitions and keep adding them to the Menti, but in the Slido. But in the meantime, I'm going to hand back over to my colleague Annabelle, who's going to talk us through our final example. So everybody, I hope you found this a really fruitful discussion. There's definitely a lot of conversation in the room. I'm going to hand over to Annabelle, who's going to talk about a final example, but you can continue to add your definitions while she's doing that. The question will stay open.
Okay, amazing. Now we're going to look at some real examples together, and I want you to engage with them critically. This is your chance to practice reading, negotiating text, and picking out what really matters. So for each example, actually we only have one time to go through one example, but for this example I'm going to ask you to think about what language is being used and what are the implications. Is it strong or weak? Which parties may have pushed for certain wording and why, if you know more about like historical, geopolitical context and what different parties have pushed for, and who is responsible in this text for taking action. So we'll discuss in small groups. This is a really good chance to make some connections and get to know the people you're sitting with. So definitely take a chance to connect with them. Then we'll come back together to share what you found. So if you're interested in speaking briefly at this event today, definitely reflect on these prompts and be prepared to share. So let's start with the first example. I'm going to leave it on the screen for 3 minutes or so, so we'll discuss for 3 minutes. This is from the COP28 Global Stocktake. So again, take a few minutes in your groups. What do you notice about the language here? What is strong and what is weak? Who has obligations and who does not? So 3 minutes and then we'll regroup. Feel free to chat. Yes. Okay, 1 more minute. Okay, amazing. We're going to wrap up the discussion in our groups. Does anyone have anything they noticed, anything in regards to the questions that they'd like to share? If you would like to share, we have a second microphone, so please raise your hand. Someone will run the microphone over to you. Raise your hand high if you'd like to share. Okay, a mic is coming. Then two.
Yes. So, as a group, we discussed that the language shall was very strong because it's required for developed countries to assist developing countries, and that came across as strong to us. We could imagine that the developing countries actually pushed for this certain wording so that it was legally binding, and the responsibility is towards developing countries, yeah.
Amazing, thank you so much. I think this table behind also had something to share.
Hi, Carlisle. We just said a similar thing. We said it was a strong obligation for the developed countries and encouraging developing countries with no formal obligation. We did kind of note that there's no real formal obligation, considering a lot of international treaties don't really have teeth and strong enforcement mechanisms even for the developed countries, even despite the word shall. But we noted that it tends to be a little bit stronger than some of the other negotiations and documents that have been talked about in the UNFCCC context.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing as well. That's absolutely correct. I think we hit all the main points. This is a really good example of differentiated responsibilities playing out in text. Developed countries here have binding obligations because of their historical emissions and historical impact and continued impact as well, while developing countries are encouraged but not required to contribute. So we only have time for one example today, so that brings us to the end of this interactive portion. But before I hand it back over, some key lessons for you to keep in mind throughout the rest of your week or weeks here is number one, words matter a lot, and understanding them makes the difference for young people wanting to engage in these high-level negotiations. Number two, vague language usually is intentional. Different parties will push for different language based on their interests. And something that's a really good tip that I learned early on is to look for what's not said. And this kind of goes hand in hand with language being vague or weak. Are there missing timelines? Are there unspecified dollar amounts? Is there a lack of enforcement mechanisms? Sometimes what is absent in the text is as important as what is present in terms of what a country's commitment or obligations are. So I'll hand it back over to Amy now that you have the tools to read UNFCCC text critically.
Brilliant, thank you, Annabelle. And I'm sorry we don't have time to go through the other examples. Final exercise before we finish. We talked a lot about language today, but we haven't truly acknowledged the fact that everyone in this room has different languages and different mother tongues. So as a final moment to try and acknowledge that, I'd like to ask you all to translate the word intergenerational climate justice and add it into the Slido that hopefully should still be linked to. There we go. So if you could translate the phrase intergenerational climate justice into your mother tongue and add it to the Slido. I would normally love to ask you all to say it and say it all together, but we have limited time, so. Thank you so much. And I'm going to ask us, actually, we're not going to go around and say it one by one, but maybe all together, everybody in the room, in their mother tongues, say the phrase intergenerational climate justice. In 3, 2, 1. Intergenerational
additional time.
Wonderful. Okay. A final few things before we let you go. Everyone who is taking photographs of the content in this session, this QR code will take you to a cheat sheet. It has information about what the verbs mean. It covers all the acronyms. There's a short breakdown of how the negotiation process works and advice on how to track negotiations. It's only 2 pages long. Right, I think everyone's got that. Finally, a few final things in here. There's a feedback survey from Youth4Capacity for this session. We really want to make this session as useful for you as possible, so please fill out this feedback survey on the far left. We're then going to also hand over to Marcel Oliveira to close the session. And over to Marcel. Before she gets going, just a little note, all the way down the right-hand side there, the partners who have been delivering this session, please do follow us, find out what we're doing. There's lots of good stuff happening.
Hello everyone, oi gente. Hi, just to know, we have people speaking Portuguese here. Oi gente, tudo bem? And for all the friends speaking in English, welcome. Si por acaso hablas en español, sea bienvenido and bienvenidas. And I'm so sorry, I just speak these 3 languages, and I work a lot to do that, to say in that 3 languages with careful welcome, because we are here in Belem, inside Amazonia, in Brazil, Latin America, South Global, make this important COP, and at the open plenary, the President Lula says important points about Afro-descendants, about facing the environmental racism, about the gender agenda, and also about the youth. And this is the result of our work. Então, se o nosso presidente Lula está falando da gente, de pessoas que se parecem conosco, não é porque ele acordou um dia e de repente começou a falar, né, gente? É porque o nosso trabalho tem resultado e tem impacto. Então, a gente está recebendo os líderes do mundo aqui, mas a gente também está se organizando enquanto juventudes. Acho que essa sessão é um pouco desse espaço também de organização. We are receiving the word, but we understand the responsibility to be youth in this generation, and we need to push and advance the leaders, supporting the official constituency younger, also supporting the indigenous council, also supporting the people without the badge to be here, but facing the consequences of climate change on the ground. So I just came to say hello, welcome, and we are together. We have one world global plenary of youth tomorrow at the youth camp. It's the first time we have one youth camp during COP. So we are so proud to make all these efforts to receive everyone with all the challenges, contradictions, problems, questions, but also our dream and responsibility with the future. Então, vocês sabem que não é mole, que não é fácil, mas a gente está fazendo um esforço enorme para receber todo mundo e principalmente para mandar uma mensagem forte de que essa COP30 talvez seja a maior mobilização por justiça climática da nossa geração, e se é isso que está acontecendo, a gente precisa não só participar, como também dar o tom. If the COP30 is the most important and big moment for mobilization in the climate justice role, this just can be with the youth participation. So thank you for this orientation session. Thank you for your presence. I am Marceli, but we have one team of champions available to help you if you need something, information, help. Let's do this COP be one COP of youth, one mutirão of youth. Thank you and welcome and enjoy Belém do Pará, because it's a beautiful city, really. Obrigado, gente. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, Marcela. And a final plug from me, on a selfish note, for a project that we're also running to tell the stories of young people taking climate action from all over the world. If you'd like to be interviewed and featured on our social media handle, Act Now Film, scan this and come talk to us. And we will finish there. Thank you so much, everyone, for your attention. Sorry we couldn't spend longer, and have a successful COP.
Yeah, and the group photo. And if everybody can join us at the front for a group photo. I know we've been here for 90 minutes, so one last task, a group photo with the COP30 President, Youth Climate Champion, and all of you as well. We can come to the front, maybe here. Right here in the front. Right here. We have 3 minutes to get a picture. Everybody, over here. Careful here, yeah.
No, that's fine. That's too easy. Really bad.
I have a habit of just like ending up in the aisle and not
Same,
being seen
yeah.
in photos. I don't know
Exactly.
why. Maybe I need to be like a personal person. It's like, wait, no, that's fine. Sorry. Yeah, no, that was creo que no alcanzo. Webinar, and it's so crazy to see you. I can't believe this